up, man? Can you hear me?
I'm in here. How you
Yeah.
doing?
So to introduce my audience, when you guys see this on YouTube, we have George Khouri here. He is an amazing, extraordinaire. He's a producer. He's a director. He's a hip hop lyricist. He's an artist, and he's an educator of the world when it comes to putting his art out there. But I want him to introduce himself right now too.
Yo, can you write my Wikipedia bio? Because that was
Oh,
popping.
I
That's
got you.
actually how I want to be introduced from now on. Like, even when my mom greets me, she got to say all of that, man.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I'm just here to preach love through all the stuff that I create. And thank you for having me here and giving me a platform to preach more of that stuff, man.
Of course, and how I happened to meet George was that a friend of mine told me she was in a project associated with a project, and I was like, cool, who's the creator of it? What he's about? What is he about? And she said he's a great guy. He's out here in LA making moves. Originally, I know him from the DC area, and then the show is dedicated and predicated to that, called Black Coffee, right? So I went to the premiere. I did my thing at Young Bold and Regal, wrote the article. He was extremely grateful. I feel like at the overnight, which we all know nothing is overnight, but overnight, I'm doing my independent research, looking at funnyordie.com, and I'm like, is this the same show that and I'm like, wow. And I go into more research, and he just does it bigger than ever since we met a few years ago. Talk a little bit more about that process and everything since then.
Evan, I appreciate you being there day one. And just want to start off by saying I love Young, Bold, and Regal. You already know that. I want the world to know it too. And it's exactly what I'm seeing you do. Is very simple. It's you're building people up. You're building entertainers up, celebrities up. It looks like Chaco just joined. He just jumped on my lap.
Hey, shout out to
Shout out to Chaco. But I really love what you're doing, and you can even feel it in how you introduce me. And it's just so important for us as creators and entertainers and artists and just humans to know that there are people out there who want to build up and not tear down. And, you know, you look at most these media outlets, they're only looking for the juicy stuff in terms of negative press, headlines, things that are going to capture people's attention for all the things that have nothing to do with the creator's artistry. So I really appreciate you seeing that. And it's just proof is in the pudding by you asking what's he about before even asking about the project, right? Because you know someone's intention, you know where their work is heading.
Mm-hmm.
When those two are in sync, that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, with Black Coffee creating that, I created it with intention. And as I shared with you that night in college, I paid my way through college, tried to pay my way through college. We all know we got them loans, working for Black businesses. And it was so cool to me to have that experience. And what wasn't cool to me was not seeing that experience on TV.
Exactly.
And hey, what if I just tell something that I experienced, right? Working inside the realm of Black businesses, all the positive things I experienced, and just showing my reality to the world, hopefully. Now, I don't know if, you know, Funny or Die is a big platform. Hopefully the world got it by now.
Hey, I say anything and everything is a big platform to somebody because it's a level you haven't reached before. So any level you could reach, any platform you could reach, even on your own platform, that's winning to us.
I love it. Yeah. So, you know, somehow it got to Funny or Die. And before that, from the time that you had been at the premiere in Beverly Hills, that's almost 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I just basically, I knew nothing of how to get this vision that I created into the industry. So I just trusted in walking in my path and figuring it out as I went. Maybe not the smartest thing in the world, probably should have done some more research. So I just did things that I thought would work, like film festivals. So Black Coffee was a winner in about 50 film festivals. So I got a lot of traction that way. I met network executives. I sat with 3 major networks before I signed with Funny or Die, and that ended up being the deal and the opportunity that worked. But it was all ground up. It was just trusting in the universe, getting on the plane, flying to different cities, meeting new faces. Just anyone says they have anything to do with the film industry, I'm there to listen, you know, and they could be someone who's not legit. They could be someone who's legit. Hey, everybody's owed to listen, right? So
Exactly.
I'm the type to listen and just get to hustling. And I want anybody watching right now, and you're a walking testament of that too, is this is the hands are like the power is in the hands of the creator,
Mm-hmm.
and the creator who has content. So I'm a guy, Black Coffee was the first screenplay that I ever wrote, loosely based on things I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I had no formal training. I mean, I did go to school for literature, but I had no formal screenplay training. I had no agent. I had no manager. I had no congress. I sat in my interesting story for you. Rest in peace to Sam Sarpong. He was a just very affluent figure. Unfortunately, he passed. But when I was working with him, I was just learning a lot from him. And unfortunately, he died.
Mm-hmm.
And after he died, I was miserable. I was before that I was acting and hosting and doing radio stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I was miserable and I had just gotten in a car accident. So I was
Wow.
depressed and I was in chronic pain from the car accident. And I
Mm.
was in my apartment in Hollywood and I was very close to buying a ticket home to DC, to
Wow.
where the story's about, right? I was very close to that moment. And then I just sat there and I was like, you know what? Well, I can't act right now. I can't move. I can't go into a radio station. You know what I could do? I could write. That's something I could do. And that's what like just opened me up. And I sat in my room and I put all those feelings that I was going through and kind of used that as fuel to get my first screenplay ever written. And here we are, the first screenplay ever written, 50 film festivals and a network. And look, I'm not saying I'm the most talented person in the world. I'm saying anybody out there, if you have a unique story, if you have causation, like we said, good intent, and you put that love into what you're working on and just trust in the universe, trust in your path, you're gonna get somewhere. It may take more time than you think, it may take less time, but you're gonna end up somewhere. And at the end of the day, all I hope from this whole experience is that I could be a walking testament of that. Like, no, ain't nobody, I want you sitting home losing faith. Someone may have said no to you. I had thousands of no's. Someone may have told you to just quit what you're doing and walk in a different direction. But you know what? If you believe that it's your path, it doesn't matter what someone told you. Tell yourself, this is my path, and own it. And own
Yeah.
it too, because we have problems owning it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Halfway in, that doesn't work.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't work. And what's so interesting about your story is that when my friend told me about Black Coffee and I looked more into it, it's similar to like a Spike Lee, where you are the helm of this project, but you're not the central focus. You're a key supporting character, and you're almost realizing like, wait, that guy I just saw, he created that. And
Yeah,
to me,
man.
that's so impressive because you not only keep the glue together and this is your vision, but you're humble enough to be like, I don't need to play all the roles. I don't need to be Eddie Murphy. Shout out to Eddie Murphy, but I don't need to do that. I could trust the actors that I see and that by producers and whoever else is on the project to do their job to the extent and give them that confidence. I want you to speak to that as somebody behind the scenes, because as much as you are in front of the scenes, I think your behind the scenes thinking process is equally impressive.
So I've been told that more and more lately, that, you know, I've gotten to the point where the stuff I'm doing behind the scenes is now shining to the point where I was in front of the scenes. And it's just been such a enriching experience to be able to be behind the scene and influence things and put positive sentiment in the lines, or just even if it's down to empowering someone. Do you know that the first pilot of Black Coffee, everybody I cast, not everybody, most of the people I cast, were fellow background actors I was on set with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting on set, we're doing background. You know how the crafty be like, all right, you know, don't take too much from crafty. Lunch, hey, everyone be quiet. Like you feel like you're a sheep at some point. I was sitting there and I'm looking at these guys next to him like, man, I know y'all are talented. You know, I know y'all have good traits. I know you're good looking. Look, we could be in the middle of this. You know what I'm saying? We could be the stars. And that's literally what I did. I took all my brothers around me. I'm like, yo, we were rehearsing in coffee shops, you know, to get everybody ready for the pilot. And just that process of behind the scenes, you asked the question, what it was like. My favorite part of the process was practice. It was actually just doing what we love. Because when you're behind the scenes, You control how much of this do I want to do? What do I want to set up? How much love do I want to put into it? You're not limited to, here's your line, go in front and say it. You could rewrite a line 1,000 times and decide how it's shot, how it's delivered, who's the person saying it. And my favorite part of the practice was the outcome of the practice, which was growth. So the more we practiced, the more I grew and the more I saw people grow. And that's my favorite part from behind the scenes, being involved in it.
And getting a little bit more in front of the scenes, looking more into what you developed. I know that you're developing a podcast, correct? That you're shopping to different networks.
Yes, yes.
Right? And also the fact that you're a hip hop lyricist. I just checked out some of your latest songs. One of your latest songs is called Will and Jada. And correct me if I'm wrong, you and your fellow artist on that track, Josephine, I feel like you are embodying Will and Jada within that song.
We are. Yeah, like
perspective. Yeah.
I even felt it in the recording session. And I had a talk with her before we recorded the song and wrote it together. And this is, you're gonna love this, all right? So I was seeing all the negative press that Will Smith was getting from the situation that happened with Jada. And I was like, wow, man, people are really putting him down. They're dogging him. Yeah. They're questioning his manhood. They're questioning how he could be a man in the house with this happening. How could you let somebody else? And I'm sitting there, and I'm going to share something very personal. I thought about the first time that I got cheated on by a woman who I was madly in love with. She cheated on me, and it shattered me. You know, it was my first experience being cheated on and my first experience being in love. So that's some heavy stuff. You know, You think it's going to be a Disney movie. You know, you grew up watching these love stories. You think it's going to be all good. And when that happened, I was so shattered. And like the thing most about me that shattered was my ego and my pride. Like, oh no, how could she cheat on me? I feel invalidated. Oh, I'm not good enough. And I'm thinking this, and I'm like, no way I could ever take her back, because then people will say, oh, she cheated on you and you're back with her, you're a sucker. I was
ashamed of that.
I was only thinking about what other people were gonna say and therefore tell me how to feel. But I knew how I felt. The truth is, I still loved her. She made a mistake. I loved her. She even apologized. She wanted to get back together for over a year after that. And my pride did not allow me to entertain it. Here I am dating other women who I don't even love the same, who I'm not interested. I'm just trying to fill a void. So while everybody is making fun of Will Smith, I'm sitting here and I'm admiring him, because I'm like, you know what? I wish I had, and not to say that he's cheated on, because we don't know the full detail. Maybe it was an agreement. But the fact that they're saying someone else was involved and you can still love that person. Yeah. I admire him for that, Evan. I really admire him. That's strength to me. And you know what? I wish I was that evolved. I wish I was at that point where I could be vulnerable enough to just love somebody unconditionally. You know, the way a parent would love their child. And for those of you who believe in God, the way God loves you. The way you have a brother and you love your brother. The way you have a sister, you love your sister. I wish I could be capable of getting to a point that Will Smith got to. And it's funny, and I'm sitting here and I have too much pride to do it. He's Will Smith. Yeah. He's Will Smith. You know, I'm telling you, he's one of the best three, in my opinion, one of the best three actors of all time. Because when you add in Pursuit of Happiness, it ain't just Fresh Prince. When you look at what he did in Pursuit of Happiness, look at Ollie, look at these films. He is so dynamic as an actor. He's able to adapt to so many roles. Mm-hmm. And if one of the most prolific actors of all times, I mean, what is he, the first rapper to win a Grammy? You know, I'm trying to do all these things that he's doing. And here I am, George Khouri. I'm too proud to do what Will Smith did. So I'm working on it. And that's what the song's about. It's about a vulnerability. It's about the seasons of love. So if you look at the cover art, it shows like a tree, and it shows the sun and snow and a storm. And it's an ode to Will and Jada. So a lot of people would see it and think that we're talking about entanglement and making fun of the situation. It's actually an ode to them, and it's giving them ups for being able to survive all the seasons of love.
And to tell everybody, like you said, it's an ode to Will and Jada, and even the cover art, it's an old school graffiti. And when I tell you, when George does something, it's not by mistake. He has his pulse on the culture. So even doing further research when I first met him, I said, okay, he's a director, a filmmaker, a helm of this movie. And I look down and I scroll down his timeline, and he has done some of the like most incredible like Drake impressions.
My man.
And what I was so impressed by and still impressed by is that you own that part of your career that you did that, but you've evolved even further from that. Hip hop lyricist, doing podcasting, continuing to do filmmaking and directing. Tell us about the versatility and just encouraging people to start where they are.
Yeah, so I remember when I was in college, I had probably the most interesting college experience you can imagine. So I was a full-time student at the University of Maryland. I
Okay.
was a district manager for AT&T, managing about 6 stores.
Wow.
And I had a record deal for an independent label.
Wow.
I was doing all these things at once. I mean, working 100 hours a week. It was very intense. At the time, my boss gave me some advice that I didn't like. I felt like they didn't want me to continue with college and music because they wanted me to stay focused. Even though, all right, I hit quota, all right, I hit quota in every store for about like a year in a row. All right, so I was doing my thing. I just think I thought there was some hate going on, and I remember my boss taking me aside and saying, George, you're never going to make it unless you do one thing and do that one thing 100% of your time. And as I evolved, I found there was a lot of truth to what he was saying. If it is, you will have a more defined path if you pick one thing that you're passionate about. And I believe it was Steve Harvey said, finding when like you're basically what you're passionate about and what you're gifted in. And sometimes submitting to what you're gifted in rather than what you're passionate about. Learn to separate that. And I'll tell you, I wish I could have followed that advice and stuck to one thing. Now, the problem was I couldn't because I was passionate about so many things and I was somewhat gifted in so many things. And I'm a person who likes to live and experience. And I'll admit, I took the harder path at the end of the day. I do feel I would have had faster success had I picked one thing. But I'm here as a walking testimony to say my boss didn't have it all right. And we're in a digital world right now. So you are not confined to sticking to one gift or one passion, because what media has allowed us to do is explore different mediums. They became more accessible. For example, back in the day, remember when rappers used to beef over a producer? Like, no, that's my beat. Now no, that's my beat.
Exactly.
There's so many beats online right now that's not even a thing anymore, right? Things become more accessible. And you will find like Donald Glover. My gosh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I can't think of Will Smith too, but these are examples of people who are so multi-talented. You mean to tell me we didn't want to experience some of his acting and only his music, or only some of his music and not his acting? See, I felt like the world would have been robbed had he picked one thing, right? And his career would have been robbed had he picked one thing. So if you are multi-talented or have interest in different areas, what I will say, I'm not going to say you just have to pick one thing, but when you do commit to doing a project, put everything into that project. So separate it by the project you're working on. You saw it, Black Coffee, I had to kind of downsize some of my music, you know. For 4 years, I woke up every morning, there was one thing on the agenda, and that was Black Coffee. And I kept at it until it's substantiated. So my advice to people, if you are exploring different passions or talents, like do it project based. Like, be serious about what you do, and if you're going to take something on, do it with intent. You know, do it with passion and work ethic.
And that's why we're interviewing you here today, because I remember after I wrote my article, the work you put in to promote Black Coffee after it's been out. And I tell people with anything, the work does not end with me, saying goodbye to you guys on an award show, or George saying, all right, goodbye to you guys. See you at the next premiere. No, see you the next minute on social media. See you the next week when we talk about how can we get Black Coffee another premiere. So talk about the work after the work, because you are one of the masters at that.
Yeah, so you're spot on with what you said. So people, this is the most common thing I've seen in artists I've collaborated with, right? They think that completing your art or your project or your work means completing your project, art, or work. Completing it means actually starting it. So the completion of your work is the real start of your work, because you can't push a product you don't have. But if you have a product and don't push it, it also doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So once you get your project completed, don't just be so fast to on to the next. You can work on the next thing, but understand, and people's attention spans are so short. You know, I watch music videos and, you know, I think it's a 3-second rule that I think is even shorter now, where it's like only 3 seconds per scene, then you have to flip to the next one, or now they're saying 2 seconds. And we're in a world where, you know, what you're doing tomorrow is all you're worth, right? It's the next thing. So by just completing one thing, you're just starting. You're not finished. You're finished working on it, but pushing it out is equally as important as creating it. So with Black Coffee, what I did is, you saw my Instagram page, I didn't care. Everything I would relate back to Black Coffee somehow on my personal posts. And then I made a Black Coffee page. We built about 13,000 followers there by just posting it. You know, we had a lot of people comment and message me saying, how can I get involved? And, you know, if you just put love, it's like a plant. You know, you put love into the plant. When you water a plant, when you get the sunshine, by doing posts, by paying for marketing, by doing designing things, by adding captions, by following new people, messaging people, you're watering or giving sunshine to your plant, you know, which is your project, and it's so important.
And I want everybody to know that the work that George does, the work that I do, we are not obsessed with how many followers we have or don't have. We are literally focused on the work. And even if you don't like it, cool, you saw it. You commented. You did all of that.
So you're gonna love this. So peep this. I don't know if you knew this. I was on a reality show at one point, and it wasn't like I wasn't a main cast member or nothing. It was called Shaw's of Sunset on Bravo. So I go on there, right, and it was like season 2, and for whatever reason, my episode had kind of blew up a little, right? It was like the most viewed episode that Christmas Eve or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then they gave me a nickname called Persian Drake.
Oh my
on Bravo, right? So I'm sitting at the crib and my homie's hitting me up. He's in the marketing, so he's like, you know, you need to change your name to Persian Drake. They ain't saying George Quick. I was like, hold on, homie. I'm not. Actually, this is a true story. I was, and I'm gonna come back to this, but I was at Laugh Factory. Tony Rock was on stage, right? And he started picking on me. He's in the middle of his set, and then he's like, oh, dude, that looks like Drake. And then the reality show was hot then, so someone yells, yo, that's Persian Drake.
Oh my God.
And I say to him, I was like, yeah, and I'm not even Persian. He goes, and you're not even Drake, bro. So I had to dab him up after that. So that's exactly what's going through my mind at the time. I'm like, yo, I'm not Persian, I'm not Drake. So it's like, I don't want to become, because I know I'm a creator, I know I'm a writer, I know I'm an actor, I know I'm an artist. So they're making me somewhat of a gimmick by giving me that name. I think it was a cute name, it was fun, it got hype, I think, for the time, but for me to embrace that now as my name, it would almost, how would I be taken seriously? So I made a tough decision that night. Yeah. And I was like, no, I ain't changing my name to Persian. I ain't changing my name to Persian Drake. So with that came a much longer path, because all the press I got there, it's all disconnected.
Yeah.
From, you know what I'm saying, from my name, George Khouri. I could have had a lot more followers, you know, a lot more recognition, but I felt like it would pin me to something, and that just goes against everything that I am. Like, I take pride in my work and as a creator, and I wanted to be more than that. But it was, let me tell you, I don't regret the experience. It was very fun being on a reality show. It was fun. Matter of fact, you know how I wrote about the Black businesses and Black coffee, where I was a security guard, right? So here I am, a few years after leaving DC, going to LA. I'm making a celebrity appearance at the club I used to be a bouncer at. And all the old bouncers who used to pick on me, make fun of my boss, they all had to watch me. But it was all love. I popped bottles with them. I'm a real one, man. It's like
hilarious.
Yeah, it was wild experience.
That's awesome. And today, of course, I'm wearing my Equal Justice Now shirt in
honor
of Benjamin Crump. He created this Equal Justice Awards earlier this year that Young Bold and Regal attended. He wanted to put those who are advocates in front and give an award show to them. And the reason why we're interviewing you today is because you're a huge ally of the Black community. What I loved about Black Coffee and what you continue to do is that you are an ally. You're in the trenches within the Black community, and you're respectful enough to be in the background, and then also respectful enough to be in the foreground and say this isn't right. So I want you to talk about your experiences with that as well.
Yeah, I felt in the beginning of shopping Black Coffee, Black Hollywood hadn't caught on as much at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, I was inspired by Martin, Wayne's Brothers, and all these shows I grew up on. And it was like, at one time, right, you turn on the TV and it's like only Black sitcoms and Black series. And then it just disappeared for a long time. And I did feel that I was met with some resistance when I started shopping Black Coffee. It's not something I could put into words, but it's a feeling, when you're trying to shop a Black show. And now it's just ironic how it's like, now there's a light on it. So now they want to start trying to cast these talents who were there all along, who were there before, the recent movement started. Why were they just being left out, And it is, a lot of times in entertainment, and this, it's kind of like a first date, right? They say, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics. Yeah. And this can be true to Hollywood. Yep. And I knew that by me taking a stance, I was going to lose followers, which I did. Mm-hmm. I was going to receive some hateful messages, which I did. I posted a song, I don't know if you saw it, called Been Here Before. Yeah. And the song actually has live footage from the Hollywood protests, which were incredible. They were so, first of all, they were so peaceful. So I don't know what I know some riots happened, but where was the coverage of these peaceful protests? You looked outside. I looked outside my apartment in West Hollywood. Man, it was all love, dude. There's people coming together. It was all good intent. There was no littering. There was no looting. There was no fighting. Mm-hmm. And so to see how that played out, I think if it's not going to be shown in the mainstream, then us artists who are aligned and who believe in the cause, it's our responsibility to give back, right? So hip hop is something I fell in love with at a very early age, and that's a Black art. These Black sitcoms I fell in love with, these were things that drove me, they fed me creatively, and for me to be in a position to where I'm around these things and able to do art in these fields and not speak up or give back, I said, no, I got to do what I just feel is right here.
All right. So tell us more about your podcast. I love the essence of it, but I want you to describe it a little bit more.
Right. So when I was on the reality show, Shaw's of Sunset, they were portraying me as this perfect gentleman almost on the show. And I was like, man, I know I'm not perfect. This is like a big title to live up to. And I was driving on the 101. I was like, man, I'm not a perfect gentleman, but but I am a gentleman. All right, imperfect gentleman. Oh, I like that. Yeah. So kind of the name flowed. So the name hit, and then I hit up my best friend and brother Tehran from DC, who's a comedian. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. I have a vision, right, where we could like kind of learn to be better men in a way, and he was all about it, and he joined on, and he was like, he brought a comic relief. He also brought a lot of insight as another man who has a completely different perspective than I do when it comes to dating and just chivalry and life in general. And as we did the show, we started realizing we need more perspective from women to teach us. We ain't gonna teach each other. So this show evolved into something very beautiful, which is the show is about inviting expert female panelists to our show, teach us how to become better men. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing this for years. And each episode, I've brought in a female panelist. I've learned, I want to say like I've learned something new every episode. I've probably learned like 100 things new every episode. And it's just been a beautiful growing experience for me, to hear what the opposite sex expects of a man. Sometimes I think I'm doing the right thing, and they're like, no, that's corny. And I'm like, oh my God. I thought, I'm a mama's boy. So I thought I'm doing the right thing, and I'm actually not. So you'll hear it all on that show, and they love coming on and sharing their experiences. And it's a judge-free zone. We've had people from all walks of life, and again, it goes back to being behind the scenes, the opportunity to grow. This is cool because behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, and you could see me growing like in front of the camera during episodes where my jaw drops, and I'm like, whoa, okay. So we've had some awesome people on there.
What's interesting about that is that I presented a question to the Young, Bold, and Regal audience a few weeks ago, and it was interesting, the exchange between men and women when it came to, is chivalry dead? One of my friends who's an awesome director, his name is Jason, acknowledges, follow him on Instagram. He said that some dudes are seemed as corny if they go all out for a woman and a woman doesn't receive that exactly. And then my other friend from the female perspective, Talk to Me Taylor Ferber, great reporter, follow her as well. She says, no, the corny part is that you think that's corny. Some women don't rock with this and other women rock with that. And I think it was just interesting. And then my friend Taylor, from her female perspective, her side, she was going all in. She was like, look, if you guys are being F-boys, then own up to it. You know what I mean? Don't come near me. And then my other friend was saying, Jason, he was like, look, there's a lot of quote unquote Russell Wilsons out there, guys who might seem corny, but the women aren't gravitating towards that. So that's why I liked your podcast. But what I want to get more into your podcast, what was something within one of those podcast episodes where you were like, wow, this was definitely something I didn't see from the female perspective that I now get?
All right, so here's a big one. So I was like going through the lens of every time I date someone, they immediately, I'm seeing them as a girlfriend. In some extreme cases, like a wife or something, right? Like I'm doing the most, and I'm like all in from the beginning. And I was telling a story, a GK heartbreak story. Mm-hmm. And then the guest just turns to me. She's like, "You realize she probably just wanted the F, right?" And I was like,
"Yeah."
and I didn't read that. I assumed that that's how you do it, and it's not. Sometimes people are just in it for the sex on both sides. It's not a one-sided thing. It's not just only men want to do that or only women want to do that. It happens on both sides, and you just got to really learn to read the person. Part about learning about women for me was learning how individual women are. Mm-hmm. Women are so individual. We've had so many blanket thoughts and statements about men and women growing up. They've been so sectioned off. At the end of the day, a woman is a soul. That's where a woman is, and getting to learn that soul. And for the men listening, if you get to know the woman's personality, her characteristics, her traits, stop projecting what you think is right, and stop loving through a template. Mm-hmm. Stop doing the same thing every time, dude.
Exactly.
Learn about her and do things to cater to what she wants. And that's where you'll be most successful in dating. And my dating life changed for the better after that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it did.
No game, man. It's funny. I felt like I used to look better at some point. Now I look worse, but I feel like I attract more because I just know the things. I know how to act. I know what to do.
Yeah.
But above all, also about the corny thing. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, still, when in doubt, always be a gentleman. Always be a gentleman. And you don't have to blanket that as chivalry, because the things that I regret doing in my life, I was acting outside the guise of being a gentleman. By being a gentleman, listening, being respectful, holding my temper back, holding judgmentation back. Mm-hmm. Just being a gentleman, caring, being a good person, you'll never regret being a good person.
Yeah. You'll always win with that, because whether you quote unquote lose or win the girl, she'll have the lasting impression of you being a gentleman, which is dope.
1,000%. It's like Mr. James in church told me. He said, George, he's like, be good, but if you can't be good, be smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, right. You just gotta be smart sometimes. Make a smart decision. Mm-hmm. And to me, being smart with women is listening to them.
Mm-hmm. And finally, where can people find you with all your projects. Say it all out there.
All right, great. So right now I'm at the forefront with my music. I got a lot of messages I want to put out, especially with the Will and Jada record, as well as Been Here Before. There's beautiful meaning there. You
Mhm.
can find my music on Spotify. Just search George Khouri and you'll be able to stream my songs. Starting to pick up traction, so I appreciate everyone listening. And of course, if you want to watch Black Coffee, go to funnyordie.com and you can search Black Coffee. You'll see season 1, which is 8 episodes. Hopefully we'll get another season there. And then, of course, most of my updates are on the gram. It's at Mr. George Khouri, MrGeorgeKhouri.
Yeah. And finally, what do you want the message of your career to be to the people out there?
The main message of my career to everyone watching and everyone who's aspiring to chase their dreams is simply believe that it's possible. Buy into your own hype and just know that if you keep at something, you may not get to where you really wanted to go, but you will get somewhere. And don't let anyone ever take that somewhere away from you.
Thank you, man. Thank you
Okay.
for taking the time. Thank you for creating. Thank you for the amazing shout out he gave Young Bold and Regal a few weeks
Man,
ago.
I love Young Bold and Regal. I'm only getting my celebrity news and entertainment news from y'all from now on. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for giving me the platform to share this information. I can't emphasize how critical that is. And you were an instrumental part into getting Black Coffee off the ground, because when I went in the meetings, they said, "Where's the press?" And I always had that article and they took me seriously because of that. So I want to thank you for the first time. I don't know if you're aware of that, but thank you.
I wasn't aware of that. That's amazing. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much for all you do.
All right, of course, man. And this isn't the last interview. This is definitely the first interview of many. We're gonna be
I love it.
George everywhere for a
I'll be
long
back.
time. Make sure you tune in, and thank you guys for checking in. Thank you.
Peace, love, and equality, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Bye-bye.